All right. Today, well, I'm going to say hello and welcome back to the podcast. But today we've got Katherine Kelly, also known as Fast and Flow,
Yay.
on. This is going to be a podcast, video, all kinds of things. Katherine Kelly is in London. She's been in London for about 24 hours.
Yep.
How are you finding it so far?
I am obsessed with London. I've only been here once before, and I knew I was going to be obsessed with it, but now I want to move. So we'll have to see what my fiance thinks, but I love it.
Well, I've been a huge listener, huge follower of you and your content, your podcast. I am elated to have you on today. Thank you for making the time. But I wanted to start and just have you give an introduction to yourself, even though lots of people probably know who you are. But I feel like you should just own the floor for a little bit and just share a little bit more about you.
No, for sure. Also, I'm so glad that we were able to meet up in person. Like, it's nice that we have like Zoom and video chat now, but nothing will ever replace meeting someone in person.
This is the first in-person podcast, by the way.
Oh.
I've never done an in-person podcast.
Me neither. So bear with us. I'm like, sit straight. Look, they can see you. I was telling Liz, I'm like, normally I record my podcast from my bed. So this is a step up. But anyway, yeah, I'm Katherine Kelly, Fast and Flow. If you guys follow me on TikTok or Instagram, I live in New York City. I'm a long distance runner. Primarily the marathon distance is my favorite. I always say, I'm like, wouldn't it be nice if I had chosen a shorter distance? But it turns out I love the marathon distance. My grandpa was a huge marathon runner, so that's always something that's like really, really inspiring to me, and I'm chasing after his PR. I'm going to be running Chicago this year, 2024, so that's going to be like my big goal race for this year. I ran New York last year, and that was a huge breakthrough moment for me, kind of going, and we'll talk about this a little more in the podcast, but going from being more of just a runner to actually a racer and like kind of putting strategy behind my training. So I ran a 3:12 at New York, which was huge breakthrough moment for me, and just kind of made me be like, what else can I do? Like, I really felt like invincible, which was a cool feeling. But for my day job, I actually work at a company called Tonal, which is a connected fitness company. I do corporate strategy for them, which is awesome. Liz and I were just talking about this, but it is really cool when you can have, a corporate job that actually is super aligned with your true passion. So though I am working more on the finance side, I'm working for a company and a product that I really believe in, which I feel like just keeps me going every single day. I work remotely, which is awesome. So I can just come to London and work, which is so nice. Previously I was working in investment banking. So I feel like I really appreciate now having a lot more flexibility, and that's not something that will ever go unnoticed. In my personal life, I am engaged. We're going to get married in a few months, which, yes, is a lot of work. So if you're thinking about getting engaged, don't just think about the ring. Think about all the planning that you have to do. You know what I mean? Like, I was like, oh, I have the ring now. And then everyone was like, well, when's the wedding? I was like, oh, okay. We have to actually plan that now. But yeah, engaged to Brett, and he's also a runner. I've gotten him into long distance running, so I'm taking a little bit of credit for him, finding his passion through something that I was doing. And we have a little labradoodle named Lucy. And unfortunately, Brett couldn't make it to London, but Lucy is home with her dad right now, her dog dad, and we're here. So yeah, that's kind of a little bit about me.
That's awesome. Well, I feel like the first thing that I want to talk about is like how you juggle it all, because I feel like lots of us watch your content, listen to you on the podcast, and like you work a full-time job, you run, you train, you strength train, you are a certified PT, soon to be certified running coach. You recently became an F45 instructor, and you run a podcast. How do you do it all?
So I am somebody who clearly like is passionate about a lot of things. I have a lot of passion in me. And when I feel like I want to do something, I'm kind of like, why would we wait? Let's just do it. And that mentality is great. Like it kind of, I think there's, a lot of people who kind of just ruminate on doing something for so long. I'm like, just go and do it. Just go and try it. And you really can't lose anything from like going and trying something. Like, say I had started my Instagram and I was like, you know what? I don't like it. Okay, it's fine. Like, if it didn't work, I'd move on, do something else. But recently, actually, like over the Christmas break, I had off from work. And so I had some time to kind of think about, okay, all of the things I'm doing, do I want to continue those into 2024? Where do I want to spend my time? Because time is a limited resource, and it's the most limited resource that you have. And I feel like we give it away so freely to things that might not be our highest priority. So that was really something that I had to like sit down with myself and journal on and like reconsider, do I want to be doing all of those things going into 2024? And some things I actually chose to step away from because spreading myself too thin, and I have people ask me all the time, like, how are you doing all this stuff? And to be honest, like, I'm just a human. I only have 24 hours in a day and 7 days in a week. And sometimes when I'm trying to do too much, like, unfortunately, things are not done at the highest quality that I would want them to be done at. And so I had to take a step back from doing F45 coaching, which I did for a month, literally only a month. And that's not something that's easy. Like, when you start something and you really want to commit to something and you really love something, it's not easy to be like, you know what, I might have not made the right decision. But that's kind of something I was talking about. And, you know, I want to talk about my own podcast too, but actually sometimes quitting is the best thing to do for yourself. Yeah. Quitting so that you can spend more time on the things that are like the highest priority importance to you. And so I kind of stopped doing brand partnerships for a while. Like, I'm in that period now, stopped doing the podcast every single week so that I can really focus on my Instagram. I can focus on my training, you know, for this whole year, for some half marathons coming up and for Chicago, focus on my wedding, and then focus on my corporate job, which is actually, again, something that I really love and is really meaningful to me. So kind of had to think about what are the top 3 things that I want to spend my time doing. That way I can really give it my all rather than, you know, spreading myself way too thin and not having enough time. So, you know, like, whatever you see people post on social media, if they're doing everything or if they're doing something different than you are, it doesn't necessarily mean they're doing the right things. Everyone's just living life for the first time and trying to figure it out. And so I always want to be like super candid and open about, hey, I tried this, it didn't work. Like, I thought this was the right path, it's actually not. And that's just part of being human and kind of like living through life. So yeah, I do think it's really prioritizing the things that really matter to you, which is, you know, kind of what I just stated.
Absolutely. And lots of people know you for your running. And I feel like something that I've really loved about like listening to your running journey, and I would love to hear more, is like how you went from like running your first marathon at I think 18, 19, and sort of the things that have changed over time in terms of like how you maybe viewed things then in terms of like not just the running, but how you fuel yourself, nutrition, and how you just like go about your training day to day versus like how you prepared for New York. I feel like there was a lot that I heard from your podcast and your content around like how you changed your approach to it and how, I mean, clearly it made a worlds of a difference in your run at New York. So do you want to talk more about like your running journey?
Yeah, absolutely. And this is still one of those questions that I obviously get every single time. And it's like one of the hardest things to put into a nice little bow and like say it concisely because there's just so much. But basically, I ran my first marathon when I was 19 years old. I ran a 5:02. And this is just coming from my perspective, like running a marathon in general, literally walking a marathon, just covering that distance is crazy. Like, that's not something that most people ever do. That's like such a testament to endurance, no matter how fast you're going, like to be able to endure that time on your feet. Actually, probably the slower you're going, the more of that endurance mindset that you have to have because it's just such a long period of time. But the thing for me is like, I just knew that I had way more in me. And I was honestly disappointed in myself because I was super injured. I had lost a lot of weight. I was not training in a way that was beneficial to my body. And I also just was not fueling myself in a way that was beneficial to my body. And I just didn't feel good. Like, I crossed the finish line. I didn't feel good. I was disappointed in myself. And like, that's also something that's taken me so long to even admit because like to my family, I was like, yeah, like I'm so happy, blah, blah, blah. But like, I really wasn't. I wasn't happy with myself. And it's kind of because I knew like I had gotten in my own way. Like, I knew I had so much more in me and I wanted to give so much more. But basically from that time on, so I was 19 to when I was 23 is when I ran my next marathon. So there was a long period of time where I wasn't really training. A lot of this coincided with me working in investment banking. I didn't have the capacity to train. I would go out a few times a week and go for a run, but it was like quite literally for mental health. I mean, I started getting into running for the mental aspect of it. Yeah. And then it kind of, you know, transpired into more, but I would just literally running has been my saving grace. Like, that's not a hyperbole. Like, it's so true. Like, it has literally saved me from everything. Like, it saved me from myself. It saved me from my own mind. It saved me from being overworked. Like, it's just been the thing that's been kind of like the motif that's gone through my whole life. It's always consistently been there for me. But once I moved out of investment banking and I had a little bit more time, I was like, you know what, let me start signing up for races again. And so I did. I started signing up for half marathons, signed up for another marathon I ran in 2022, which was the Brooklyn Marathon, which they actually didn't offer this year because the course was just so bad. It was really bad. There was like 3 loops of Prospect Park in there, which for anyone who's from New York, that's like just so much elevation. It was just not fun. And I started to kind of realize that I had way more in me. That I was at this point, a much healthier relationship just in general with like food, my body, running. And so I didn't even really do anything that different for my second marathon. I was like, okay, I still didn't have any structured training. I was just going out, running however many miles a day, making sure I was getting, 40 miles a week, something like that. That was literally it. That was my only objective. I didn't have any speed work. I did some long runs, but nothing was structured. And so just off of that, I ran a 3:31 without any speed work. And this is not to be like, oh yeah, I ran a 3:30. Like, it's literally to be like, when you fuel your body, everything else is so much easier. Like and I just feel like a lot of people get into running for the wrong reasons and end up sticking with it for the right reasons, which is awesome. Like, I'm glad that, that's being talked about more too. I think especially with a lot of females, just like running to look a certain way. And it's like, you don't competitively train to look a certain way. You competitively train to perform. And that's also something I'm very open about talking about on my social media and my podcast. Like, if you're training for a marathon, you don't train to look a certain way. That's not why you're doing it.
You will gain weight.
Yeah, you probably will. It's like really, really common. And honestly, probably a lot of it is going to be muscle. Some of it might be fat, but like, that's kind of not really the point. I think it's if you're in that mindset of like being so worried about weight gain or weight loss or whatever it is, it's really, really hard to like train optimally. And weirdly enough, marathon training has actually, maybe not weirdly enough, I think a lot of people share the same perspective, but has made me respect my body so much more for what it can do, and has made me want to just like do everything, all the recovery, all the fueling, like I'm like, whatever it needs, sleep, anything to make sure that I'm as healthy as possible, because I'm like, I want to do this for a really long time and I want to feel really good while I'm doing it. And when I wasn't fueling myself, literally, like, I would be doing a run that was 10 miles and by mile 8, I'd be like so dizzy. That's not normal.
You were talking about this the other day, and I used to have this like post long run feeling almost like hungover.
Yeah.
That's how I could describe it.
Literally, because you're just so depleted. That's not normal. Like, I just want to put that out there. Like, I finished my long runs, it could be 20 miles. I feel great. Like, there's a way to do really intense training and like a high volume of training while still feeling good. And that just all goes, again, back to the fueling and recovery. Like, I think about this a lot. Like, Olympic athletes are like clearly doing much higher volumes of training than like we are, but they're very healthy, right? And they're performing at literally like the maximum capacity that you can in the world. Because they're recovering. And again, this is their job, so they have time to do a lot more of this, but they're recovering so hard. They're probably eating 2 to 3 times as much as we're eating. And like, it's just really cool to see what your body can do when you actually start to love yourself. And so, yeah, that's honestly like the mental shift of just like loving yourself. And then the physical stuff will just follow. Like, you honestly don't even have to worry about the physical stuff. That will just follow. So second marathon, ran a 3:31, and I was like, okay, I think I actually have something here. Like, if I put structured training behind this, how far can we actually take this? So New York this year was the first time I joined a run club. I'm now involved in several run clubs in New York. Some social run clubs, some competitive run clubs, but that changed the game for me. And I know some of these things might seem annoying when people are like, find community, find your people. That will literally change your life. Like, it's crazy. And I'm so fortunate to have found so many people and made connections through social media too, that then become like real life connections. And now we're running together, like literally podcasting together. Like, this wouldn't have happened if we didn't both do social media, which is crazy. So I joined a competitive run club and I was like, oh my God, like this, how am I supposed to do this? Like, this is crazy. But the thing is, you just start doing it and then it's not crazy anymore, because all you have to do is take one day at a time. Like, I would look at the schedule and be like, okay, I just have to do this today. Kind of seems like a lot, but all you can do is take one step at a time. Like, when you really break it down, all you can do is take one step at a time. And like those will all compile over time. And then you're going to be like where you want to be. And so it was really just like breaking it down, taking one day at a time, like, and seeing other people around me who were also training competitively, because I didn't even think it was like a possibility. Like the things that I thought I could do were so limited. And that's why I talk about this a lot too. Like running competitively has made me believe in like every area of my life that I can do literally so much more than I thought I could do a couple years ago, which is so cool. But yeah, and I kind of, you know, again, started going through structured training, which I can talk more about that if you want, but it obviously, you know, it works. Like when you follow a plan and you adhere to the plan, it's not magic. There's no shortcut. There's no magic pill. It's showing up literally every single day for yourself, and putting in the work. And you got to give yourself a little bit of tough love sometimes, because especially at the beginning, and I even realized this after I didn't train for 8 weeks. I just, you know, after New York, I took like 8 weeks off of doing any like running training.
Yeah.
And I was still doing easy running. Like I've been running 5 days a week for almost 10 years now. That's like my steady state. That's what I love to do. As I said, that's been the thing that's been there for me, like through and through, and like my mental health. So I was just easy running. And as I've gotten back into training these past couple weeks, like it has been like, oh my, like pulling, oh my God, like just finish the interval, like so hard for me to do.
Yeah.
And that's a mental battle. That's not a physical battle. I'm like, I know I can physically do this. I was doing this times 3 a couple months ago. It's a mental battle.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, you can gain that and you can lose that. But I think the beautiful thing about that is you train your mind to like not give up.
Yeah.
And that's not something that is going to happen in a month. Like that's just like day after day after day, like years of just training your mind to be stronger and stronger. That's why I love endurance running. So anyway, I cannot answer any question quickly. So there you go.
It's fine. But let's talk. Okay, but New York, what was the goal time?
Yeah, so New York, I wanted to go.
3:12.
No, it was not 3:12. So as I said, I had ran a 3:31 in 2002, and I was like, all right, you know what? I think I can do a 3:20, which maybe if you've never run marathons before, you're like, oh, 10 minutes, like that's not much. But when you start to like actually get down into what the mile times are and what you have to be splitting, like improving your mile splits for 20 seconds over 26 miles is such a feat. It is so much time. And that's why like endurance running, it's not very forgiving, like, because you have to be able to sustain something for hours on end. So it's not forgiving. That's why I always talk about like your running form is so important. Your running efficiency is so important. Like getting those smaller things right before you even start training. Like I always talk about building a base, and like, because you need to be able to be in it for the long haul. Right. And so anyway, my goal was 3:20, which was going to be about a 7:40 mile pace. And so going from an 8-minute mile pace to a 7:40 mile pace, again, for 26 miles, I was like, that's a decent chunk. Just think about doing that for 1 mile and then, multiply that by 26. So it's like, all right, but I think I can do it. Like I'm believing in myself. I think I can do it. I'm putting it out there, and like putting your goals out on social media too is like also nerve wracking, because then you're like, well, now these other people are expecting me to perform like I said I was going to. To that, I would say, nobody cares about your goals as much as you do. Seriously. Like not in a way of like, oh, no one cares about you, but it's like literally no one cares as much as you do. So that really encouraged me. Like, don't be afraid to just say what you want. Just say what you want and put it out there, because even if you don't get there, you're going to get so much farther than you were going to if you didn't speak it into existence. Like I would speak it into existence. I would write it down in my journal every single day. I was like 3:20, like we're going, like it just became so normal for me to think that I was like, I felt like I'd already done it, because I was like, I just kept repeating it and saying it and writing it down. And I was like, okay, we're going to do it. Like there's no question in my mind. But obviously when you train for a spring marathon or fall marathons, you're starting in like the dead heat of the summer.
Yeah.
So that is like really difficult. And there were, I mean, I don't know how the weather was here, but there were like a month of time in New York where it was so humid.
Yeah.
95 degrees every day, very hard to run. So I started training, and I was hitting, when I would do my tempo miles, which basically are just like, those are like fast, continuous runs that you're practicing typically at like your goal race pace. And so, most of your running is not done at your goal race pace, and we'll talk about that later. But those tempo days, my tempo Tuesdays, I was, you know, hitting like a 7:40 and I was like, okay, I'm only hitting it for 5 miles and it feels really hard. Like, how am I supposed to do this? You know, but you just keep trusting the process, you trust the training plan, and you keep going. And so as the weather started getting colder, I started realizing, oh, like, okay, now I'm actually at like 7:30 for these. And now I'm up to like 10 miles at that pace. I'm at 7:30. And does it feel easy? No, it's not easy and it's not fun. Like, and I want to get that across very clearly. Like, if you're really going out there to race, it is not fun. It doesn't feel good.
Yeah.
And there's different reasons to run a marathon, and not every marathon I run is going to be like as fast as I can. Like, that's just, I would love to just, you know, do all the world majors and like have fun and do them, and that'd be awesome. Like, you don't need to run a marathon for your fastest time. Just want to say that because there's a lot of different reasons that people run. But anyway, this is kind of the season of my life where I'm like proving to myself what I can do, and it's really cool. And so I started at, you know, 7:30, 7:20, 7:15, like 7:10, 7:05, like, and it just kept going down and down and down, and the mileage was getting longer on these tempo runs. And I was like, oh shoot, like, maybe I'm kind of like hampering myself by saying I'm going for a 3:20. So I never changed like what I was saying on social media. I was like, you know what, let's just keep it at 3:20 because I don't want to freak myself out and like get too overzealous, because this was really happening in like end of September and October. So maybe like 5 or 6 weeks to go is when I really started to be like, okay, maybe there's more. But I just didn't know. I really kept that to myself. I really didn't tell anyone else. And I don't know how else to explain it other than like from the start of the race, like from mile 1, like going over the Verrazano Bridge, I was just like, no, so actually the time that I had in mind at that point was 3:10. And I stayed with the 3:10 pacer for 22 miles. And then the last few miles, I ended up slowing down by like 15 to 20 seconds per mile, which I finished in 3:12. But from the start of that race, I was like, you deserve this. You're doing it. And I just like kept repeating that to myself. Again, like going back to the fact that it's such a mental battle. It really, really is. Like, and I said this a lot during my training, but like, your mind is going to give up 99% of the time before your body does, truly. And like, it is a protection mechanism because your mind is, you know, and it's also a proprioception thing. I was actually reading this in my running certification that I'm doing, but like, even if you're not actually feeling any pain, your body will like assess how fast you're running, assess how fast you're moving, and like interpret pain before you're actually like in a spot where you're actually feeling pain. Like, so it's so mental. And yeah, it was really just me being like, you can do it. Like, you're going to go for a 3:10. And like, I obviously didn't end up getting 3:10. The 3:10 pacer slipped away from me the last few miles. And I was like, you can't even think clearly at that point. I was like, you guys go. Like, I have fun. I'm going to be back here. And at that point I was like, whatever happens, happens. But, yeah, I mean, it was just a crazy day. And there were definitely a lot of miles like going through Brooklyn where you're feeling good. It's like the first 10 miles, there's a little bit of downhill in there. Like, the crowds are going crazy. And I just kept seeing like 6:55. I was like, ooh, like, we got to slow down a little bit because there's no way. Like, listen, you believe in yourself, but I did not train to that time.
Yeah.
Can I run a marathon 6:55 splits? I think I can, but I just hadn't trained to it. So I was like, okay, we got to be smart. We're in it for the long haul here. So I had to slow myself down a little bit, but it was like, I don't know. It was just honestly an electrifying feeling. Like, New York is, we were just chatting about this before, but there's like no other race with that energy. It's crazy. And so, yeah,
I agree. I think like what you were saying about like essentially having to be your biggest cheerleader is like such a huge thing with like running and like running really any distance. Like, when you start like racing like the shorter distances, like those also like are just so painful and so
painful.
But it's just like you're the only person, even if you're running somewhere like New York and you've got like crowds cheering you on, like I feel like you have to be the person that's like keep putting one foot in front of the other, and like that's such a huge part of it. But I think also something that I really admire with like your training, that like I went into Chicago training last year being like, I don't know what I'm capable of, but like, I'm just gonna ask my coach. And she was like, yeah, I think you're capable of a BQ 3:30. And I didn't believe it. And like the way that you speak about like you know, putting it out into the universe and saying it. Like, I feel like I had such a fear in like even saying it out loud and being like, because I didn't truly believe that I was capable of it. And I feel like you have such like a, I guess, like great approach in terms of like believing in yourself, even if you are putting it out on social media and online to the world, that like you're projecting like, I am chasing this time, and like no matter what anyone says, no matter if I get it or not, like this is me, this is for me. And I feel like sometimes like that can like, I don't know if you've ever experienced like that, like playing into like your training, or like just kind of like
Yeah.
almost like imposter syndrome.
I was just about to say imposter syndrome, and honestly, like even going past running, but like when I was first starting my Instagram, I was like, I work in investment banking. Like, what do I think? Like, I'm gonna be an influencer? You know what I mean? Like, it's just such impossible. But I was like, I have something really meaningful that I want to share. And social media is literally free to share the things that you're most passionate about. I was like, how could I not do this? I have so much passion in me and so much information that I want to share. And but yeah, I mean, even felt like an imposter with that. I mean, I constantly feel like an imposter, to be honest, like even as I get older, and like, even like, I don't know, getting engaged, I'm like, I feel like I'm 18. Like, I feel like an imposter. Like, I'm planning a wedding and I'm not. I'm like fully old, but you know, I don't know. You just can have and I think it is honestly common, like really common among women to be like, just doubting themselves. And I'm like, wait, but I worked for all of this. Like, how am I still having imposter syndrome? Like, I've put in the work every step of the way, but still I'm like, oh, I don't know how I got here. It's just weird that it's like, no, it's not. Like, I put in the work every step of the way, and I still feel this way. Like, and I haven't really said anything like too crazy about my Chicago marathon time goal yet for this year, but it is just like, sometimes I feel like when I'm going to say something, I'm like, oh, people are going to be like, she can't do that. Like, I don't know. It's almost more of like thinking of what someone else is going to think.
Yeah.
Sometimes too. And like, I have fear of that, of people being like, what is she saying? Like, what is she even, who does she think she is? You know, which is like scary. But I think it's just like the more times that I prove to myself, and that's why I love running. Like, running is just kind of like the medium through which I'm learning all of these things, but it like has much broader applicability to the rest of your life and everything you want to do. But it's just like, once you prove to yourself one time, like, I set this goal, I believed in myself, and I did it. That like muscle in you starts to grow, and you're like, I can do it again. I can do it again. And it's really crazy to see that happen. But I mean, I was like, when I met Brett 5 years ago, if you can ask him, I mean, I was so not confident in myself at all. Like, this was when I was first starting out. We met a week into working. We met actually the first day. We worked at the same company. We were analysts at the same investment banking company, and he had interned in investment banking before, and I hadn't. And I was so self-conscious of that. I was like, oh my, I don't know a single Excel formula. By the way, Excel is all I do now. Like, it's like the only thing I'm good at. So it's just crazy. You can really learn. You can learn whatever you want to learn. But I was so self-conscious. I was like, I'm not smart enough. I mean, I've had imposter syndrome with everything. Like, I'm not smart enough. I'm not pretty enough. I'm not literally whatever it is. Like, I'm not funny enough. I'm too loud. I'm like, literally just with everything, or just like these self-doubts and like not believing in myself or not liking myself. And it's like, if you don't like yourself, no one else is gonna like you. Like, no one wants to be around somebody who's like having a pity party, you know? Like, it's crazy. Like, once you start giving off like just such positive energy, people are just attracted to you. People like want to be with you, want to run with you. Like, it's like, and you just have such a crazy impact on the world. But it like literally has to start with you there. And it's confidence. Like, as I said, I was not confident in myself. I'm much more confident in myself now. There are still many things that I want to be more confident in, and I was having a conversation with Brett about this last night. It's a lot of things about work that I'm not confident in, but it's because I haven't practiced them. And confidence doesn't just come out of thin air. Confidence comes from practicing something all the time, consistently. And that's why, like, even with running, like being your biggest cheerleader, it's like you have to practice showing up every day, proving to yourself you can do it, and hyping yourself up. I mean, you're just gonna have to keep doing that again and again, you know. And it's anyone can do it. It really is not a secret, but it's like, it really is in the consistency of doing something every day, and whatever you want to be confident at, just like practicing that every day.
Yeah.
you know?
And like when you talk about like not liking yourself,
Yeah.
you did it, you did a podcast episode on like the whole strong over skinny movement.
Yeah.
That was like early in like the 2010s or something,
Mm-hmm.
like when thigh gaps were a thing and like all that sort of stuff. But I I feel like it was something that you would like you were saying, like you outwardly say, but I feel like, I don't know, for like someone like me, and like you've really posted a lot about this, which I love, but like being proud of your strong body as a female, because like, you know, you look at like some of these, like, I don't know, like for example, like models on Instagram, like growing up, and like they're really skinny and they're really thin. And, you know, I feel like so many females can relate to like the idea that you spend so much of your life trying to like change your body and change how you look to be a certain way, when instead I feel like what I've loved about like your focus on strength training the past 8 weeks is like, how strong can I get? And like focusing on like, you know, loving that your body is like able to get you through this, and that your body can like continuously build muscle and like continuously get stronger.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, so this podcast that I had put out a couple weeks ago was I don't know what made me think about it, but this was back when I first got Instagram, which was like years and years ago, probably 10 years ago at this point. There was this, I mean, at first it was only models. This was when Instagram was just like static images. There wasn't like reels and stuff like that. So it was literally just like hot girls on Instagram. That's all there was on there. And so it was just like, wow, all of these just completely unattainable figures for most people. But I mean, especially for somebody like me, I've always been muscular. Like that's just my It's so crazy that I used to be upset about that, because I'm like, that is such a blessing for somebody who's like trying to compete in running or like any sport competitively. Like, and I was complaining about the fact that I had like muscle, which is just wild to me. Like, I'm so grateful for that now. But yeah, that's not how it was. And then kind of, I don't know when this happened, but then this hashtag started going around. It was strong, not skinny.
Yeah.
And I remember being like, I know that I should want that. And I'm like saying, yeah, like I want to be strong, not skinny. But that's not what I actually wanted. Like what I really wanted, like deep down, I was like, no, I just want to be skinny. Like I don't want to be strong. Like I want to be skinny, like those models, because they're really hot, honestly. Like so surface level. Like that was really it. And I think that the concept that I had, like there was two opposing ends of the spectrum. One, which was that you were a model, beautiful, and the other was that you were like a bodybuilder. And I was like, I don't want to look like the bodybuilder. Like, I don't want to be like so big and like look masculine. Basically, I was like, I don't want to look like that. And so, in my mind, those were the only two options. And I was like, okay, well, we're gonna be skinny then, because I cannot look like that. And as time has gone by, and I've like thought about this more and more, like the I guess, and not that like your body type is the most important thing by any stretch of the imagination, but like, this is hard to talk about on social media and the right words too, but it's like, we're all humans and we're all aesthetically driven and we want to look a way that makes us happy, right? But the concept that I have in my mind now is like, somebody who has a lot of muscle, like you can have a lot of muscle but be lean. Like you don't have to be like this huge bodybuilder. First of all, if you're a female, you're probably not going to look like that unless you're like supplementing like crazy and eating 5,000 calories a day and like 200 grams of protein. Like you have to try so hard to look like that. Okay. If you're a runner, you're probably never going to be able to look like that because you're just running so much too. But it kind of, I was like, wait, there kind of is this there's this middle ground where it's like, no, you can be really strong and really fit, but still be lean, still be agile, still like that's something that's important to me. Like I want to be agile. I want to be like flexible. I want to be able to move quickly, right? Especially for like a lot of these shorter distance races, and even just like, you know, I want to feel light on my feet. I don't want to feel like really heavy and big and bulky, but there's not only two options. Like there's a way in which, first of all, there's a way to do anything. Like there's a way to strength train to maximize how physically large your muscles are, or just how much strength you have, which are two different things, by the way. Like often they are correlated, but just because you have a larger muscle size does not mean that muscle is stronger. And it all has to do with like the recruitment of the muscle fibers. Like we can get way more into that because I love that stuff, but we'll save that for another time. But for runners, actually, a lot of the time, what's really important is like really gaining better neuromuscular control and neuromuscular connection, which is just really like how your brain speaks to your muscles. You want that like process to be really quick. And you want you to be able to think, you want to do something and boom, you can just do it. And so a lot of times for runners, it's not necessarily, I personally do want to gain muscle mass like that. I want to do that. That's a goal of mine. But even if that's not a goal of yours and you're a runner, strength training is still really important because you need to sharpen those neuromuscular connections. Not to mention that, like, especially as a female, even muscle mass, bone density, like that's something as you get older and older, like it's a lot harder to keep progressing in that capacity. So if you are young and have the ability to do that now, that's literally amazing. That's like just a longevity thing. That's not running, irrespective of running, like having muscle mass. First of all, muscle is much more metabolically active than fat. It's like, I don't know why I ever wanted less muscle. Like having the most muscle is just amazing. But I was saying before, I hadn't did any speed work for 8 weeks, come back, done it the past 2 weeks, and I'm already hitting paces that are way faster than I ever hit in marathon training. And I was going hard. Yeah. And all I've done is strength train, which is crazy. Like I feel like my form is so much better. I was running on the treadmill the other day. I was taking a Peloton class and I was thinking, I used to take these classes and like they used to feel really long to me and really hard to me. And like my form would really deteriorate towards the end. And I just felt like, I don't know, like my posture was just so good. Like it was just easy for me to like keep my shoulders back and down, keep my head up, keep my hips kind of tucked under, have my feet fall right under my center of gravity, like without even thinking. Yeah. And it was just because I think my muscles are just so much stronger than they were before. And like, I want to run the fastest marathon that I could possibly run in my body. And I'm not going to get there by not doing strength training. Like strength training will be a huge component. It's something I'm really excited about going into this next year because it's actually not something that I was doing too heavily beforehand. And then I kind of got halfway into training for New York and I was like, probably not a good idea to start. You never want to start something really drastic, like 6 weeks out from a race. You know, it's like, you know what? I haven't gotten injured, like knock on wood, thank gosh. But after the marathon is over, and I said this on my social media too, I was like, I'm going into like this season of strength. That's what I called it. And I'm going to be a lifelong strength trainer. It's so rewarding. Like I feel like running takes a lot longer to like really see improvements, but strength training, you go to the gym like 2 weeks and you've never gone before, like you're going to be like, oh my God, it's so addicting. It's so crazy.
Yeah. So other than strength training, what else might you change or not change ahead of Chicago this year? Because we're both running Chicago, which is exciting.
I know.
But I'm going to be really excited to see like what you do and like how you're kind of training. But
yeah, absolutely. So something that I think I am so Chicago is not until October 13th, 2024. It's currently like January.
She's got the date
something
like, in her head.
I know, because that's the most important day no, stop. I'm getting married. June 1st is the most important day of the year. No, but then October 13th is the second most important day. No, but yeah, and it's the new year. We just started the new year, so we have a lot of time until then. And so I was actually talking to one of the people who heads up my run club, and he was saying, it's actually probably really pertinent for you to concentrate on short distance, like short. Okay, I'm not running an 800. All right, but I am doing a 5K, I'm doing a 10K, and I'm doing a couple half marathons. And so really like dialing into those shorter distances, which with that comes a lot of like track style workouts. Yeah. So a lot of like, the 400 meter repeats, 800 meter repeats, 1,000 meter repeats, which are, those are not fun. Those hurt. Yeah. You're not going to get better by feeling good all the time. No. And I'm not talking about pain. Like pain is not good. If you're injured, don't push through that. I'm talking about discomfort. Yeah. It's uncomfortable to get faster. And it's not necessarily something that everyone wants. Like, again, some people just run for mental health. I'm not saying you have to go out there and like destroy yourself trying to like, train
Only
for a race.
Some of us want to do that.
Okay. But if you do want to, I will be your biggest supporter and follow me at Passive Flow. No, but I think, I actually think that concentrating on those shorter distances, in addition to adding on that strength training will pay a lot of dividends when it comes to me, you know, after my honeymoon's over in June, that's when I'm going to start up training for Chicago. I think, I really think it'll pay itself forward. And so last year was totally about endurance for me. I really wasn't focusing on like those faster style workouts. I wasn't focusing on strength training. So I think a lot of it is like me honestly just focusing on kind of more strength and power for the first part of the year, just so I can kind of build up that tolerance to doing those types of workouts, so that I can even bring that with me into my marathon training and, you know, do a little bit more of like the speedier, kind of more powerful workouts, both on the resistance side and the running side. I think, you know, we'll see. I don't know. I've never done it before, but I'm feeling good about it. And I think, I don't know. We'll see. I was happy with my training last year, though. I think I really had a really good structure. So I'm not like looking to change anything crazy. It will be about like pushing myself and hitting even faster times in my speed work. But again, most of your running is not done fast. So most of my training will still remain the same, just like with small tweaks. So
Well, I mean, on that note, I want to say, first of all, thank you so much for coming on the podcast, and it's going to be so exciting to see how you do in Chicago, and we'll see you in Chicago.
Yes.
But to end the episode, I think it'd be interesting to see if there is one piece of like controversial like running myth that you want to debunk, because I think there's a lot that goes around. Like, so many people are on, you know, social media right now, like training for marathons, and a lot of people are putting things out there. What is something, as a soon-to-be certified running coach, that you see that you could debunk? This was not on the agenda, by the way. So I've thrown a spanner into the works.
Well, there's a couple things. I think one that I feel like just everyone hears all the time is like either running is bad for you, or like running's not good for females, or running's bad for your knees, or like, it's just, that is not true. Okay. Overuse is a real thing. Overuse injuries are 100% a real thing, but when you play tennis too much, you get tennis elbow, okay? No one's going out there saying tennis is bad for you. You're just overusing that muscle, those tendons, those ligaments, right? So overuse of anything is gonna not be a good thing. And when people start getting into running, there's kind of this concept that like your cardiovascular capacity will increase at a faster rate than your muscular capacity. So if you're not used to running and you're like, wait, oh my gosh, I can run 10 miles, I can run 15 miles, but you haven't actually put like the strength work behind it, or let your muscles acclimate to doing those types of motions, you're gonna get injured right away. And that's why a lot of new runners get injured, because they're like, no, I can do it. It's like, I understand like your lung capacity and the way that your body carries oxygen. It's like working great. Like, you can do it, but your muscles aren't ready for that yet. And I think that's why a lot of injuries occur. And then people are like, well, I wasn't running before, and then I started running, and then I got injured, so running must be bad for you. In every study that's ever been done, running has, for your knees specifically, like running has been shown, you cannot be a lifelong runner without actually building up the cartilage in your knee. Building it up, not breaking it down. Every study that's ever been done. There's also studies that have been done comparing walkers and runners, and like what percentage of those groups get hip surgery. Walkers get hip surgery a lot more frequently than runners. Like, running is so good for you. It increases your bone density, it increases your cardiovascular capacity. It's just like, it's actually, I think a lot of studies have proven like you can like really use it to combat like depression and anxiety and stuff like that. And I'm not a doctor or anything, but from my own experience, that is true. And so, I think just that concept of like, or certain people can't run, or just running's not good for you, or whatever it is. It's like, I think, again, a lot of new runners struggle because they go too fast and get injured. And I see a lot of people now who just start running and they're like, I started running 3 months ago, I'm gonna run a marathon. I'm like, I don't know about that. Like, more power to you if like maybe you're a unicorn and you know exactly how to train and how to do it, but that's, in my opinion, the quickest way to never run again. Let yourself enjoy it. Let yourself like build up the capacity to actually sustain that type of, movement before you are, signing yourself up for a marathon. You don't, maybe this is another one. Like, you don't need to run a marathon to be a runner. You don't need to run any races to be a runner. You don't need to run any paces to be a runner. If you are running, you are a runner. Like, point blank.
Yeah.
So anyway,
Mic drop.
my little mic is here. I'm not gonna take it off.
But I think that is such a good point to end on. I want to say thank you so much for coming on the podcast, and I'm gonna give the floor back to you to share how people can find you, follow you if they don't already. You've got lots of different ways to find you. You've got the podcast, her podcast. When I found it at first, I absolutely binged it. I'm not gonna lie.
Wait, that means so much. Aw. I'm like, okay, this is crazy. You probably feel this way with social media too, but like we sit here by ourselves and just talk.
Yeah.
And it's hard to understand that there are actually people like consuming the content on the other side. Because I'm like, is anyone listening? I feel like, but thank you.
I think podcasts are the worst because you're literally like either talking into a mic or a computer, just like there's no one. But share ways that people can find you.
Yeah, so Fast and Flow on TikTok and Instagram, and then Fast and Flow on podcasts. You can find me anywhere, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, anything. But yeah, Fast and Flow. So my whole family started referring to me as Fast and Flow now. They're very supportive.
Love it. Well, thank you again so much for coming on. We'll have everything linked below, and we'll see you in Chicago.
Yes. Oh my gosh. My heart is so full. I'm so excited.